Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
Brought to you by GlanbiaConnect.com.
Hello and welcome to Farmview. Well, as usual, it's Kieran O'Connor here with your weekly farming programme, and once again I have a very busy show for you this week. But on this week's programme I'll discuss Glanbia PLCs Annual Results. They were announced earlier this week. We'll talk to Group Managing Director Siobhán Talbot. I'll also talk to well-known Agri journalist Darragh Cullough about his very successful Daffodil enterprise, and plus I'll preview next week's KIldalton College's virtual open evening.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Earlier, Glanbia announced their annual results, which are reporting a solid year, notwithstanding the global challenge of COVID-19, with revenue up 1.8% across the group during the year. While adjusted earnings per share declined, the business delivered a strong cash performance and a strong balance sheet. So to look at the overall results, earlier I got a chance to talk to Group Managing Director Siobhán Talbot. Siobhán, welcome to our programme.
Thanks a million, Kieran.
Siobhán, the overall performance for 2020, obviously COVID played a huge part within that, but are you pleased with the overall performance considering the whole COVID scenario?
I am, absolutely. I think our team did a phenomenal job, Kieran, in truth. There's no doubt that COVID-19 was disruptive, particularly in the second quarter, but our organisational response was phenomenally resilient. When COVID-19 really started to emerge in the latter part of the second quarter there, we set ourselves really three key priorities. It was all about protecting our people, continuing our supply chain and that supply of food, and maintaining the financial position of the group. And I think across all those three boxes, we could tick them when we're here now at the end of the year.
Obviously, the role of teamwork within the whole Glanbia group was so important, getting all the sectors on the one page as such.
Yes, absolutely. You know, one of the things that I would really point out that characterised our response to COVID was how right across that community of over 7,600 people, we really leaned into our culture. We are a very purpose and values-led organisation. We took very seriously the fact that we were seen as an essential industry and could continue to run our plants and run our operations. And the wider portfolio actually protected the organisation an awful lot. So while some parts of the business were hard hit in particular times for COVID, the overall portfolio actually was really resilient, and we're pleased with that. But it was very, very much to your point. It was a massive team effort.
The overall performance of the various divisions, now Glanbia Nutritionals, once again a very strong performance by them, and really they're outperforming performance nutrition over the last year or two. So is that a concern for you, or is it more a credit to all involved in Glanbia Nutritionals?
I think it's a credit to all involved in Glanbia Nutritionals, but equally reflective of the journey that we have been on in Glanbia Performance Nutrition, particularly for the second half of last year. Again, we focused our attention in three key areas. We are undergoing a major transformation programme in GPN that has advanced really well and in fact over-delivered against our plans. That is a journey that will continue through 2021, but that positions us really well for growth ahead. We have two very clear growth platforms in Glanbia PLC, being that branded performance nutrition business and Glanbia Nutritionals. And you're absolutely right to say that through all the vagaries of COVID, and probably because the areas in which we play with our ingredients and indeed food staples in which our joint ventures play so well, they were particularly resilient, I think, through all the challenges.
As regards the whole area of strategy, your strategy, health and wellness, nutrition, every step of life's journey, you mentioned there how you're looking at performance nutrition. But overall, are you happy that the whole strategy that you have is the one for the future?
Yes, I think what we have done through 2020 is taken the opportunity of COVID to really sit back and look again. And in fact, that has really endorsed the strategic direction set by the board. Because if you think through COVID, really, COVID is a health crisis. Glanbia is an organisation about delivering better nutrition. So there is an ever-increasing view by consumers on the link between food, nutrition, diet, prevention of medical issues and general health. And that has only accelerated. In fact, one of the other things we've seen accelerated, I think, all as consumers, is the shift to online and e-commerce. And we are in a great place, particularly within our performance nutrition business, to develop that. That's one of our big channels now, and you'll continue to see us do that. So the fundamentals of the areas, Kieran, that we play into, that, as you say, are all around healthy ingredients, brands that support active and healthy lifestyles, weight management, for example, I believe will actually only be more positive in a post-COVID world.
Now, as regards acquisitions, you had some acquisitions in 2020 in the US, and also there's been expansions, and we think locally in Ireland, of course, of what's happening up in Portlaoise. Are you happy the way they're developing?
Yes, huge compliments to the teams. As you know, building large-scale facilities is no small task. The combined investment in our facility in Portlaoise and in Michigan in the US is over €500 million. So they were enormous facilities, and the teams have done that. We will commission both facilities probably in the second quarter of this year. So through all of the lockdowns, through all of the challenges, the teams have done a great job training people, bringing people on board. You know, we'll employ ultimately over 100 people in Portlaoise, which is excellent. So very pleased with those large-scale developments and working really well with all of our partners in those. On the acquisition side, yes, we bought a very nice Canadian-based flavours business, which is really complementary to our ingredient portfolio in Glanbia Nutritionals. And again, Kieran, one of the good things about where Glanbia is positioned just now is that our balance sheet is actually in really good shape. Our debt position is significantly lower, in fact, than it was even at the end of 19. We've been very cash generative through all the challenges of COVID. So we will be very much focused on our growth agenda and having that a blend of developing the business, but also acquiring new businesses.
Now, the challenges, of course, ahead, and not alone for Glanbia, but indeed for the food industry in general, is the whole green agenda, environment, sustainability, carbon emissions, and of course also here in Ireland, particularly in Ireland, we have the whole Brexit scenario. So how well are you facing up to these challenges looking into 2021?
Yes, to deal with the latter one first, maybe, we're obviously very pleased that ultimately a deal was done in relation to Brexit. There's various things just that we're navigating in terms of some of the logistics, but all of that will be fine, I think, because we spent a long number of years planning and getting ready for the outcome of that. On sustainability, you're 100% right. It is an agenda evolving very much at pace. And in 2020, we have really evolved our thinking in terms of a long-term sustainability strategy. Glanbia, as everybody knows, the very name means pure food. So under the banner of Pure Food plus Pure Planet, we are actually setting science-based targets to reduce our carbon by 2030 on a road to net zero carbon emissions no later than 2050. So we have announced with our results science-based targets on the carbon side. We're committing to zero waste to landfill by 2025, and there's more work we'll be doing on areas of water and packaging through the year. So very conscious of that, Kieran, and a journey we're very much embracing with our stakeholders. In the wider piece, obviously the sustainability agenda has many layers to it: environmental, social, governance, and one of the big themes that Glanbia has done a lot of work on too through 2020 is the area of diversity. A lot of listening in the organisation, again, a journey we're very committed to with all our stakeholders.
Finally, looking ahead with 2021, both from a Glanbia Ireland perspective, of course, involves Glanbia Ingredients, the Agri and Consumer, and indeed the overall group. How do you see the outlook for Glanbia PLC and indeed Glanbia Ireland as well for 2021?
Yes, I think both Glanbia Ireland and Glanbia PLC are very strong businesses, very ambitious for the future, a lot of growth opportunities. There's always challenges that one has to navigate, and we're all very conscious as an organisation and team that all of the vagaries of COVID are by no means finished. You know, the impact and the tenure of COVID still has yet to be fully played out, but we are very pleased to see the vaccine rollout, and fundamentally it is our view and hope and desire that the restrictions that have gone with COVID will alleviate as we move through 21. On that basis, Kieran, we are guiding that Glanbia PLC will be back in growth in 2021 with an ambition that our adjusted earnings per share will grow in a range of between maybe 6 and 12%, because that's reflecting the uncertainty that is still there by virtue of COVID. So I would say a lot of positive momentum in the organisation, a lot of areas that we are involved in are strategically on trend, and really anxious and ambitious now to get back to growth for 21.
Siobhán Talbot, Group Managing Director of Glanbia. Siobhán, thanks for taking our call.
Thank you.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Of course, we're in the middle of spring, and when you think of spring, you think of early lambs and, of course, daffodils as well. And one man very much involved in the daffodil, indeed, flower production, is well-known ag journalist, farming independent, and, of course, well-known from RT's very successful Ear to the Ground, Darragh Cullough, who joins us on the line. Darragh, welcome back to our programme.
Thanks, Kieran. Always delighted to join you.
Darragh, daffodils, as I say, spring, you think of lambs and you think of daffodils. And my God, have you got involved in daffodils big time? I knew you were involved in mixed farming, but didn't realise the scale of what you're involved in with the daffodils. You might tell our listeners about your enterprise.
Yeah, well, my idle boast is that I'm probably one of the 5 biggest daffodil growers in Ireland. But if you knew anything about the daffodil sector in Ireland, you'd realise that that's a very empty boast, because there is only 5 growers in Ireland of any commercial scale. We're all roughly about the same size. So I grow about 80 to 90 acres of daffodils, and right now we've a team of about 30 people out in the field in all rain, hail and sunshine, picking like bananas. I always describe them as Olympic athletes. These pickers will pick up on 10,000 stems each per day. So they're out there, they're combing the fields. We're picking about 300,000 stems a day at the moment. And to give you an idea of what in the name of God we're doing with all those flowers, it's a little bit like Ireland's beef and milk industry, in that the Irish market is an import market, but when you get into a bit of scale, it's a very small market. So we actually end up exporting the majority of our daffodils. So we've a truck calling here now in the next few minutes into the farmyard where I'm talking to you from in Eastmead, and it'll be loading up with 5 pallets for the Dutch auctions.
So when you sell, sorry Darragh, on that, when you say Dutch auction, do you not know your price until you get onto the auction? Is that the setup?
Well, again, you get into anorak nerdy daffodil stuff here, Kieran.
Sorry,
but some of my produce is forward sold on contract. Some of it goes out onto the spot market. In theory, it's a simple thing. You plant a bulb, you go out in the spring and you pick it, right? But when you're dealing with millions and millions of flowers, any little variation in the day-to-day temperatures has a big impact on the number of flowers that come into us on a daily basis. And while we can kind of smooth out the peaks and troughs a little bit by holding them back in the fridge maybe for a couple of days, at the same time we do need to be able to kind of pull the levers where we can offload a surplus when we really hit a warm patch. And while it might not feel that warm out there right now, there has been a step change in the weather in the last week. So, soil temperatures are rising. That wind is pretty biting, but it's a slightly warmer wind, and we've had plenty of moisture, so our daffodils are really flying now. We start picking in the first week in January, and we pick right up until Easter, because we have 20 or 30 different varieties that all come and are planned to flower sequentially for us, so that we have a new variety coming on each week. And
Darragh, as regards the Irish daffodil, are our conditions here conducive? I know we're well known for our grass production, but as regards the daffodils, how are we perceived at the European level, and how are our conditions conducive for a good daffodil? And you mentioned the various varieties, but the Irish daffodil internationally, obviously we must have a good rating when we've such demand for our daffodil.
Yeah, it's a little bit like milk, in that it's one of those rare things that we're competitive on internationally, and the reason is the same as why we're good at milk production, a temperate climate where we have a relatively early spring, but not too hot and not too dry. So, there's only small strips of the Earth's surface that are suited to growing daffodils commercially. You can grow them like in huge swathes all over the world, but to be able to grow them at a scale and for an extended season, you're really talking about Britain, and Ireland, maybe a little slice in northwest France, a little bit of Germany, a little bit maybe in southern Sweden, but they're only acting a maggot up there. They'll hate me for saying that. And then over across in northwest America, Oregon, Washington State, and a bit down in New Zealand at the other end of the year. But that suits us grand. So we're not facing competition from Brazilians or from, Chinese daffodils or African daffodils or anywhere in the world where labour is dirt cheap. So that immediately helps us, because one of the biggest costs in terms of being competitive with daffodils is the cost of your labour, because you can't go out there with a machine and mechanically pick these. Remember, we put the bulb in the ground in the autumn, but we wanted to stay in the ground for maybe 3 or 4 years.
So it's handpicked
before we come in and harvest that bulb. It's handpicked because if we go in with a machine and cut all the leaves, we're stripping all those solar panels that are feeding those bulbs. As
regards rotation, obviously from a daffodil point of view, for the field that you're growing them in, do you have to rotate, and are you involved in other flower production?
Yeah, so the rotation is crucial. It's like any intensive horticultural crop. If you get a pest in a field that likes to munch its way through daffodils and it lands into one of my daffodil fields, it's arrived in nirvana, because I plant literally hundreds of thousands of our every acre. So we leave them down we treat them quite severely before we plant them in terms of sterilising them to make sure that they're not carrying any pathogens, that they're fungal free, that they're bacterial free. And so those bulbs are in peak condition when they are planted. We leave them down for about 4 years. Any longer than that, you run the risk of, that you've left it in the one spot for too long, that eventually a pest will find it. And even if a pest doesn't find it, it gets difficult then to harvest the bulbs subsequently, because the bulbs, they're not able to multiply after a certain period of time as much as we'd like them to, and the land has gone back to land. It's gone almost like concrete, and very difficult to separate the bulbs from old, long-term kind of land.
And do you actually rotate with the likes of tulips or lilies or peony roses?
You did ask me if we grow other flowers. So, we were a total one-trick pony until about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Grew daffodils and cereals, and we had a bit of dairy here on the farm, but no other flowers as such, no other horticultural crop of worth mentioning. And I realised that I had this pick and crew. I had, big fridges. I had to market. I had all this infrastructure in place. And why were we just revving it up for a couple of months every spring and then, sending all these good workers and pickers home? So we started into growing other flowers, and now we're at a point where we almost have flowers 12 months of the year. So we roll from daffodils into alliums and iris and camassia and all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff, into peony then in May, and then into Sweet William, and then we have our sunflowers and gladiola and lily coming on. And then during the peak of the summer, we just have a world of different flowers, from dahlias and old-fashioned flowers as well.
Darragh, I was going to ask you, what do you do in your spare time? You're an agricultural journalist, well known with the farming Indo. You RT ear to the ground and grow a few acres of flowers. My God, it's an unbelievable. I knew you were involved in mixed enterprise, but never realised the extent you're involved in the flower industry. Darragh, it's intriguing, and I'd love to go along someday and actually visit your farm. And I know I've seen it on TV several times over the years, but I'd like to go along and visit it when this all ends. But listen, thanks for taking the call. I know you're hectic up there. You're picking in difficult conditions, but let's hope the skies will clear and that you'll have a good end of season to your daffodils there up in County Meath. Darragh McCullough, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Kieran.
Well, on Thursday next, KIldalton College will hold a virtual open meeting. Always a huge highlight every year with their large open day. Obviously, because of COVID-19, it's gone virtual like all other events. And to preview the big event for next Thursday, we're joined by Principal of the KIldalton College, Tim Ashmore. Tim, welcome to our programme.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Yeah, that's right. We're having a webinar this year. Normally, people will be face-to-face on campus in early March, but this year we're running a webinar. So it's starting at 6 p.m. for horticulture, 7 p.m. for equine studies, and 8 p.m. for agriculture. So for anybody interested, prospective students, parents, whoever wants to tune in, you can tune in for all three if you like. But you need to go on to teagasc.ie to register online, and you'll be sent the link for the webinar.
Tim, as principal of KIldalton College, you must be so proud indeed, all your staff, the way it has developed in one of the top colleges now in the country, and the wide variety and range of courses from all the various levels right up to degree. But the numbers that are now going through the college and the variety of courses available, you must be thrilled at how it has progressed, particularly in the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, absolutely, Kieran. I suppose now there's 1,400 students would come through KIldalton every year, and that's a variety of students from our bread and butter courses, practical courses at level 5 and 6. We also work closely with WIT and UCD going to level 8 courses. So there's great progression routes there for students, and it's one of the questions we often get asked at open days about progression. So that's something that we will be discussing on the night, as well as our range of courses.
As I mentioned,
particularly anybody who's interested in a skills-based course at level 5 or 6, this is the open day, because you get lots of video footage from the college, as well as a live panel discussion with some ex-students and staff of the college. So we get all your questions answered on the night.
Obviously, as I mentioned the intro, normally you have a huge open day which attracts well over 1,000 on a Friday in early March. You're covering horticulture, equine and agriculture, and I think you touched on it there. The format, so will it be one-on-one and then some video showing the actual facilities at KIldalton?
Yeah, look, we're going to have a live panel here in the college, but we also have some video footage of the college and of skills training in the college and the different enterprises in the college. So look, while you won't be here face-to-face, you will get a good view of the college and around the yard. Typically an open day, you'd be going around looking at the enterprise and facilities, but I suppose we've got that on video now, so it's a great opportunity for people to see KIldalton.
And of course, part of the range of full-time, part-time and even distant education courses. Just to recap, you're kicking off with horticulture at 6 o'clock next Thursday, isn't that the procedure?
That's right, so the 6 o'clock for the horticulture, it's 7 o'clock for the equine studies and 8 o'clock for agriculture, and we invite anybody who's interested to register at www.teagasc.ie and register for the event that they're most interested in.
Well, Tim, once again, well done to you and all your staff. You're doing a fabulous job, particularly last year during COVID. I know, speaking to several of the lecturers down there and indeed some of the students, it was highly successful. And I'm sure this open day, virtual open day on Thursday next, the 4th of March, 6 o'clock horticulture, 7 equine, 8 o'clock for agriculture. For more information, www.teagasc.ie. Tim Ashmore, Principal of KIldalton College. Tim, thanks for taking our call. Best of luck with the big event on Thursday.
Thank you, Kieran. Thank you very much.
And before I go, a reminder, of course, that our weekly marts continue, with livestock sales continuing weekly, of course, with no buyers ringside and all sales online. Don't forget Warford Ross Mart every Saturday morning in New Ross, with cattle from 9:30 and calves from 10, while Dungarvan Marts, of course, their annual cattle and calf sales continue every Monday from 11, and of course all sales, as I mentioned, are online at livestocklive.com. And a reminder, as we previewed earlier in the programme, KIldalton College's virtual opening evening takes place on Thursday next, the 4th of March from 6 p.m. To register, log on to teagasc.ie. Well, that's my lot for this week's programme. So from myself, Kieran O'Connor, it's goodbye for now. Once again, my thanks to Ollie and Sean for all their help in putting this week's programme together. So stay safe, keep up to protocol, and hopefully I'll have your company again same time next week.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.